AJ got his degree from Emory and Henry in business and language. Which language was that, AJ?
French.
All right. And of course, he has been involved with us, and starting here at the Institute in what year was this now? 1992. Director of Operations, and he was the center manager. He was taking care of all of these buildings, the ones up on the hill. Well, actually, I guess that was a house for a little bit then, right? But has been very instrumental not only in the management of the facilities, he also dealt with personnel, financial matters, you name it, he picked it up, along with various building projects that you were very instrumental in. Thank you for all of that. Then, in 1999 to 2004, he was actually the vice president of the Monroe Institute, working under, Lori at the time, I suppose it was. In 2008, he became the special projects manager at Monroe Products. And in that time, you were working with Teresa, right? You have such good karma with women. You are so very fortunate. Okay. In 2012, AJ became the president of Monroe Products, and since then, given all the advances in digital technology and whatnot, has been working with that, putting forth a new business plan to keep Hemi-Sync products coming out in new and interesting ways. And we do intend to be working with AJ quite a bit in the future as we're looking at new programs as well. I guess that's enough for the moment. I'm going to turn it over to my baby brother, the president of Monroe Products, AJ Honeycutt.
Thanks very much, Scooter. I appreciate being invited to this tech talk this morning. It's a wonderful opportunity to reattach, if you will, in this particular environment. I also understand that we're going to have a Q&A at the end of our talk, so we can address specific questions then. Also, we're going to be listening to some sound clips, so they're usually about a minute. I'll do a little standing with egg on my face, but that should be okay. I'm used to doing that. And so, as we haven't been in this environment for a while, I thought we could start near the beginning.
Say in your mind, say to yourself, I am more than my physical body. Because I am more than physical matter, I deeply desire to expand, to experience, to know, to understand, to control, to use such greater energies and energy systems as may be beneficial and constructive to me and to those near and close to me. Also, I deeply desire the help and cooperation, the assistance, the understanding of those individuals whose wisdom, development, and experience are equal or greater than my own.
Anybody have an emotional experience while listening to that? I know that I do as well. Let's investigate, let's take a look at the primary elements of Bob's works and what they are, especially specific to this time. First, it was his voice, what he said, how he said it. He honed this quality over the years, and I remember him in front of his mic and zoop, 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 trying to make sure that he got it in a special way. His reel-to-reels, his sound generators, his oscilloscope, it was really quite remarkable. He had all the tools there, most notably his ashtray. He was one of those guys that would take the cigarette and he'd light it, and then it would all burn down by itself. So there would be like these little ashen caterpillars within all of the ashtrays of the thing. And of course, our mom, whenever she was witness to that, she'd be like, running around behind him waiting for the ash to drop. So that was one of those fun things that I remember in my childhood. Secondly, within these primary elements is Bob's favored use of phased pink noise. Whenever we jokingly refer to the nature of Hemi-Sync, we always go into that. We all recognize it for what it was. It was a bed. It was Bob's bed. It was his container. And as you all know, it was his cloaker, too. Back in those days, in the essence of being able to provide the technology and the way that Bob operated, it was interesting for him to be able to display it in such a way that the raw tones weren't necessarily out there in everybody's face, but they were nestled into this other element which helps create the overall exercise. And third, and perhaps most importantly, is the Hemi-Sync with its telltale vibrato. Do you guys recognize the focus level from Bob's affirmation? Any guesses? Bueller? Focus 10. Focus 10. We fast forward to the 80s and now enter meta-music, where we began to blend the technology into the artist works. We wanted to create a souped-up version that enhanced the intention of the overall composition. This is a sample from Midsummer Night, and this was composed by Alan Phillips in 1986. It's one of our first meta-music titles. Okay, so Hemi-Sync signature. Did you guys hear the Hemi-Sync in it? Hardly present in this case. But in this case, it's focus 10. This is the tried and true mix of delta and theta signals that have been relaxing people for years. And although not as sexy as the higher focus levels, focus 10 has been elegantly doing its job for about 40 years now. And what also makes this particular time remarkable is not necessarily tech-oriented, but the cavalcade of wonderful artists that have shared their talents with us over the years. It's been a good run, and it's been getting better. I wanted to take this opportunity to acknowledge that. We've had a lot of wonderful people that have contributed their talents in order for us to create the products that we all benefit from. During this time, too, an instrumental part of the meta music line, pun intended, unfortunately, was audio engineer, composer, musician Mark Serto. Serto learned from Bob well. He was a great guy, and he brought his own talents to bear as well. And he did a great job for us. So Mark was another one of those, perhaps, as it rolls down through the annals of time, Marcos was another instrument in us becoming who we are and what we've sounded like over the years. Now, as we move up into contemporary times, we've added the technical feature of keyed carriers. They help deliver the Hemi-Sync more effectively. Kevin Cowan, who's been with us as an audio engineer for 8 years, he's lent his talents in establishing these carriers to help our current refined sound. Kevin's been a great asset in our Hemi-Sync audio endeavors, and we're going to listen to some of his efforts with an excerpt of Gary Malkin's The Music of Graceful Passages. This excerpt that you're listening to is a music track only. Please note that there's no Hemi-Sync in it. While we're listening to this, I can also tell you that Gary's musical passages have been very well received by the public. It's actually quite beautiful in and of itself. And you guys saw Gary's movie. He's a wonderful man. Okay. So that's Gary's work without any other technology in it. Now let's listen to the keyed carriers associated with the same passage. This is just the keyed carriers, the technology involved. That's pretty cool, isn't it? Yeah. Yep. If you musical types in the room, perhaps you could sort of recognize the chord progression of what we heard in the excerpt previous to that. But to put it all together now, let's listen to the combined version of it. This is the music and the Hemi-Sync. Okay, so when...
What was it? I'm sorry. What's the name of this one again?
This is the music of graceful passages. And that the specific song, if you will, that we're listening to is called Letting Yourself Be Loved. So what's kind of cool about that is that when we listen to that, the telltale signature that used to be what is Hemi-Sync within the body of these particular compositional works has been relieved to a certain extent. We have the capacity to look at these particular items in software and determine what the binaural registrations are on them, so that we can look at old stuff and see that we're getting this kind of binaural registration. And then when we have the ability to artfully fold in the technology within this kind of stuff, we find that the binaural registration becomes more like this. This is very technical, you understand, this to that. So what I wanted people to hear is the nature of the articulateness of which we can now utilize the technology within to the body of work. The primary point being is that it allows us to create stronger registrations within these works with less noticeable effect. And so essentially it's like having another instrument within our body of work, and it allows us for a more subtle binaural impact. Subtle binaural impact, yeah, baby. And so that has been something that's been in the works for quite a while. Obviously, the more you do it, the more better and effective that you become. And so we have been utilizing this wherever possible in order to be able to provide for more of the technology. As a contemporary mind food example, I wanted to expose you to Scott Taylor's fine work, Into the Light. And Scott's work explores near-death experiences through guided meditations. And what we've done is that we've emphasized certain aspects of the sound clips to illustrate the elements within them. So this isn't what a final master of these particular exercises sound like. And like I said, we've accentuated things so it's easier for you to hear. What I would like you to do is to note Bob's specified focus 21 signals applied with the keyed carriers.
Out of the sacred all, out of the darkness, a light appears. It grows larger and larger. Out of the light steps a divine being. You recognize this sacred figure. It exudes the energy of love, compassion, wisdom, and acceptance. It approaches, and you enter each other's energy field. Join with the sacred all.
Sounds amazing, even when it's out of whack, for our listening pleasure. The cool thing about this, and what I'm really excited about, is Bob's going to be performing at Tape Day on Wednesday. And in his massive generosity, what we're going to be able to do is to listen to some Hemi-Sync exercises. And of those Hemi-Sync exercises, we've chosen to do a couple of these Scott Taylor works, which is specific to near-death experience meditations, which quite frankly dovetails quite nicely into the conversations that we've been having today. So as far as a thematic aspect of it, this is some of the work that we do down there to be able to create environments such that people that have experiences or actually would like to have these experiences have a model from which they can work from and use. So I look forward to everybody's listening to it, and perhaps more importantly, I'd like to hear people's feedback about it. We can't do much without you guys giving us what you think about it, how you feel about it, what you realized about it, what you've experienced about it, because essentially it enables us to be able to do our jobs better. The important thing to mention about this project is actually that the musical score was composed specifically for this piece. This is actually another relatively new element in how we put things together. Oftentimes when we've done projects in the past, we've taken known musical compositions, things that we can find that are sort of applicable to the task and blend them in thusly. With these particular works, what we're finding is that we're collecting composers that actually will sit down with us as part of the process to create these works, so that the actual music track, the score within the body of the work, is another voice within the context of it. So the music in and of itself really enhances overall the project of the work. As we've seen with movies, we know that soundtracks can make all the difference in the world regarding that. Something's got to give, Penny? Okay, so with that in mind, let's go over Hemi-Sync, how we do it in 2014. Number one, we use regular carriers and classic beds when the conditions dictate, oftentimes with acoustic percussive works or the revamping of old exercises. So what that means is that when we do some of the older stuff and we want to enhance it, we still use the phase pink, we still use the Hemi-Sync, we still sort of create the same kind of environment so that there's continuity between the old stuff and the new stuff. Also, a lot of times when we get musical pieces, they're actually not appropriate for keyed carriers. They're appropriate for having a more, shall we say, static environment associated with them. So we still sort of work on those particular containers, if you will, in order to project what we want to with the other sounds that we have. Number two, we've got the keyed carriers that we listened to a little bit. We can musically embed those keyed carriers within our compositions. It allows us for more binaural beat characteristics, and also it allows us to investigate the nature of keys and what their effects are. I mean, it's really quite interesting. You can do Hemi-Sync in many different keys, and there's a body of interest out there that suggests that the different keys are energizing of different particular points, if you will, based upon the nature of the sound that you're listening to. So we're having a lot of fun playing around with those elements as well. As noted, I spoke about the musical scores already. They are designed specifically for the projects. And also, we've been recording other acoustic items, and we try to find real-world sounds that lend themselves to relaxation and contemplation. In my notes here, I've got written down shameless plug for Streamhaven. Streamhaven is an exercise that I put together after having an experience in a local stream. And I realized that there were so many components of it that were natural yet enlightening, natural, let stress reduction, to be able to sit in this body of flowing living water, let your stress go downstream, and to create a quick environment so that people could actually create this space for themselves and go back to this particular space whenever and wherever they want to. You guys have never heard that before, I'm sure. But in any event, what I did was I went to the particular stream and I recorded it, because I felt like it had those intrinsic qualities in it that were already there for your sense of relaxation and contemplation, and adding the Hemi-Sync to it would just be the icing on the cake. So that will be available this spring, and if you're of the mind, take a listen to it, because that's also sort of a simple representation of what we do, of creating something that actually has some value, but it's not necessarily something that it's incredibly complicated. It's important to note here that we still follow Bob's formulae, or principles, if you will. When it comes to making the Hemi-Sync, we really follow the rules created by him, or suggestions created by him, or ratios created by him. As you all know, he's worked for countless hours, years really, to establish these particular formulas, and to that event, it's those particular relationships that the whole credibility and use of Hemi-Sync was established. So we want to respect that as much as we can. It's obvious to say that there are plenty of binaural beat producers out there these days. Many have rolled through the Institute, frankly. And it's understandable. We're not the only binaural beat restaurant in town. However, Hemi-Sync is our brand. It is our restaurant, it's our food, it's what we create out of our kitchen. And we really want to nurture, protect, and grow that brand to the best of our ability. Okay, well, so pressing on and coupled with these other details are the effects of the audio analog digital revolution. I brought some other methods of audio transfer over the years. Got to have some props. The New Science of the Brain, National Geographic, incredible pictures, fMRIs, structured networks, really cool stuff. Have you read it? Neither. The pictures are really good, though. All right, let's talk about some methods, shall we? You guys remember this? Reel to reels, baby. This is when I talked about when we were kids and we'd come rolling on in there and Bob would be in the midst of all of his equipment and he'd be playing with these babies. It's incredible. Bob never did any 8-track. You'll see that there's an actual size relationship that I'm trying to pull off right here, relatively unsuccessfully. But hey, this is when we really got started on the map. Cassette tapes. In the bottom of the gatehouse, there used to be an imprinting machine where actual Hemi-Sync exercises were manufactured there. And I can remember there was like this gold paper stuff that did the imprinting thing, and it would melt and get all turned up and everything like that. And so we would end up with a bunch of on the cassette tape. And then so we ended up going to digital audio tape. And that was kind of like the grooviest thing. And one of the other things that you guys might not be aware of is that there was an actual time where exercises were recorded on VHS tape. No video, just audio. It was another intermediary step, much like the DAT that had a relatively short shelf life, and then it went on its way by the road of all of the other, these guys. CDs. We went to the CD thing, and of course, I think we're all of the particular generation where this is kind of like the new stuff, and it's groovy, and through a decade or so, this has been our primary means of being able to put this stuff out into the world. And we really still do. When it comes to, I'm going to talk about this in a minute, but when it comes to digital downloads versus actual CDs, if you want the total enchilada of what we have to offer, get it on CD. It is the purest form of what comes out of our shop. So digital downloads are great, and they're convenient, and when you want the most bang for your buck, that's it. Then we go down to memory stick, thumb drive. It just keeps getting smaller and smaller, doesn't it? And so what happens is that a lot of times we've spent times going from the particular devices to a smaller electronic device, and now we have the cloud. And so basically, we have no device. And so you're just moving, you're basically moving information around from one intangible method to another. And so that makes it really great because, you know what, for the young generation, this is their world. They've got their apps in it. They've got their pictures in it. They got their music in it. They got their brain in this thing. And so to a certain extent, it's incumbent upon us to be able to keep in step with that. And it's hard because what happens is that there's always the newest, greatest thing. And so what happens is that you end up trying to focus yourself into what you feel are the most appropriate avenues. And so in terms of Monroe Products and their activities in all of this realm, we've basically have had to go on from a physical business model into an intangible business model. And so that's been a tricky situation for us because you end up trying to meet the needs of a couple of different masters in that sense, and so you find yourself trying to cover as much as you can. But I can tell you that as our digital momentum grows and the volumes associated with that, the inverse is taking place with CDs and actual physical products. So it's one of those kind of things of when you feel the water, kind of leaving the bathtub, it's time to get out of that joker and find something else to do. And so that's how we've been pursuing that. In the day where it used to be cassette tapes, now it's WAV files. And so we're trying to keep in step with technology and all that has to offer. To that end, we have developed apps for iTunes. We also have some selections in the iTunes store. We're on Amazon as well. I would be remiss if I didn't plug our new website. That houses a lot of materials. It's got our exercises in MP3 such that you can download them. And please check it out, Hemi-Sync.com. Like us on Facebook. Okay, well, I've done my diligence on that one. All right, well, so let's move on to a few research-related endeavors that we've been involved with in the past few years. Currently, we have a study with the Army's Department of Research Programs Clinical Investigations at Fort Belvoir Hospital in Virginia. The title of the study is Binaural Beat Technology, a Complementary Path to Post-Deployment Wellness. At this time, there's 74 participants, Army nurses, in fact, who are listening to a certain version of Dreamland. It's a meta-music by Laura Nashman and Michael Moon. It contains the technology in some of the exercises, but not in the others. We loaded MP3 players for this issue. We numbered them randomly and then kept the IDs for which ones were the meta-music with Hemi-Sync and with the meta-music without Hemi-Sync. Here's a quick clip of Dreamland without Hemi-Sync. Okie dokie. And here's the Dreamland with Hemi-Sync. Subtle distinction, is it not? So we're really... Do what?
Subtle, but it's certainly hearable.
Well, that leads into a whole other chase Alice down the rabbit hole. Is it necessary to be hearable for it to work? As far as from where we sit, it needs to be hearable. But that's an interesting discussion in and of itself. I have a really cool email from Lieutenant Colonel Gant, who is the Deputy Director of a really groovy Army component thing that I'm not going to be able to remember. I left the email in my car, so I can't read it. It's really supportive, though. And actually, I know, Barbara, I know that you've been busy doing a lot of stuff. I'd be more than happy to cover this in more detail with you. I actually with Bob as well and stuff like that, because these are the activities that we do as Hemi-Sync to continue upon the research endeavors that we can manifest under our own power. Elsewhere, Patty Leva. Does anybody remember Patty Leva? She's an old friend of TMI and Hemi-Sync, and what she's done is introduce meta-music into Covidian's intranet meditation service. Covidian is a huge health provider, and she's involved with the outfit out in Boulder, Colorado, and that health system there has 2,300 employees. And they also have a similar system back east. I think it's in Philly, Phil, and they are actually creating an in-house meditation service for their workers, such that in their cubicles they can take a time out for a half an hour, 45 minutes, and go to this particular site. And I think we've got 8 meta-music titles that are up there. And a couple of weeks ago, I queried her to see if there was any groovy nuggets that I could pass on to you guys and fill out my presentation, and I haven't heard back from her yet. But what I wanted to point out about that is that this particular event is not necessarily a research endeavor. It's not a research endeavor in the truest sense, but we want to maintain these kind of actions because through the review, we gain insight into what we can do to improve our product and create meaningful stuff. And so oftentimes what happens is that a Patty will come to us with an idea and say, look, I would like to do this. Can we use your stuff? Is there anything that we can do about that? Do we need to go through a bunch of contractual hoops? Do we have to pay you? Do we have to, what's the deal with that? Our typical posture is here. Take it out, use it. Don't want any money for it, but what I do want is I want your feedback. How is it? Where is it? What's suitable about it? What's not suitable about it? I want to be able to get a Hemi-Sync into any appropriate environment such that it gives us information to improve what we do. Back in the 70s, there was a whole posture concerning how much time it took to get into a particular state of consciousness. How long does something have to be? Where do we, does Focus 21, can we let that out into the real world? Ooh, that's too powerful. We need to control it here. Keep an eye on it, folks. Nowadays, everything's compressed. I wouldn't be surprised if that arc of getting into a particular state of consciousness has become steeper over time as a result of our culture and as a result of our pace. So to get back to Bob and Bob's mantra, give them something of value. And besides that, get it out there. And so within our world concerning the specificity of Hemi-Sync, we still continue upon that path. Now, in the future, and speaking to the research arena, we would like to participate in such a way where we can bring Hemi-Sync to any research venue and create binaural beats for specific applications. A laptop would suffice, and in light of our ability to multi-track everything, we can make real-time adjustments to adjust for any needs of the researcher. It's like a dynamic cause and effect to see what's happening. It'd be really cool to be able to sit in an environment where we can look at particular states, perhaps through the fMRIs or the large amount of tools that we have available to us, and to be able to look at it and to be able to change it subtly to see what kind of effects that have on the nature of these particular things. And jokingly, I'm just in the laboratory, gee, look at Simmons' head when we crank up that sigma signal. I mean, it's like, it's nice to be able to get real-time information back within the context of using something rather than the old model of going, okay, look, this is our mix for this particular thing, what does it sound like? And this makes it more of a dynamic enterprise when, the researcher can go, hey man, can you put a little more blue in that? For lack of a better word. What happens if we increase the delta in this? What about gamma signals? What about what have you? And so to be able to have those metrics to go forward with, to where it really helps us understand where the rubber meets the road. We have tons and tons and tons of anecdotal information, but we don't necessarily have that information that talks about the building blocks of how it all particularly works. I'm a little disappointed that I spaced out on not having Lieutenant Colonel Gant's email in front of me, because she refers to those specific metrics of heart rate, blood pressure, particular proteins, et cetera, because, quite frankly, I think it gives us a little bit more of a toehold in the world of wanting to present this to the world and say, this is a legitimate, grounded technology, and this is what it can do. And I think that within our lifetimes, there will be that kind of attention that is afforded to this particular technology that is skirted on the edge for so many years. Bob and his books and all of his activities in this realm was somewhat directed into legitimizing the process, to find out what it is, where does it come from, what does it do. And the Monroe Institute obviously is instrumental in those efforts, both in the doing part of and the receiving part of. So, as I look back over my notes, I want to be able to say we welcome any grounded research endeavors in order to understand what we do and how we do it. As to the professional division, it's important to note also that our doors are always open for you guys. If you got ideas for research projects, let's talk about them. If you've got ideas for other projects that you think are of merit, let's talk about them. The door is open. But of all of these things that I'm speaking to, and in step with the Institute's endeavors, we'd like to pay a particular attention to helping our service members and their associated issues, as well as brain trauma injuries across the world. It will take research to allow us to see to them in a responsible way, and that's something that we can do for true value. Something that's not mentioned too much in this environment is our biological dad was a career Marine officer, and he went through the South Pacific, Korea, and Vietnam. And although it wasn't identified back in those days, we're fairly sure that he was a PTSD man. after all of that particular kind of stuff. And so with a coupled connection regarding Bob and his efforts and endeavors, and our biological father, who is involved with helping out servicemen and making life easier for them after his career, it was a wonderfully fulfilling joint experience for me, and I think probably for the rest of my family as well. Okay, so where do we go from here? I've already mentioned the real-time customizable Hemi-Sync. It'll be great for research, and we know that we can tailor-make the frequencies for particular individuals and applications, so stay tuned to that. We really look forward to being able to understand more about this technology that we know is very important and powerful. To that end, we're also considering MIDI-based keyboards that can play Hemi-Sync in real time. And what that means is that think about being able to take a keyboard to a concert, or think about having a keyboard that's part of a concert or any kind of musical endeavor to where you can basically play the Hemi-Sync within the context of playing the music. And so that would be really sort of neat too, because it's another sort of emotionally evocative vehicle that you can use for any particular situation. And you know, it's really kind of neat because it's one, it's a musical enterprise, and number two, it's sort of like it's a musical way of delivering the technology and can be applied in any particular environment. And so that is certainly blue sky material, but it's one of the things that we've been knocking around for a couple of for years now, in terms of, man, that would really that really has the capacity to jack stuff up. As I had mentioned before, it's the other instrument in the room. What about Hemi-Sync in movies as an emotional enabler? What about virtual reality? It's like, I don't know if you guys are into any of the stuff, but there's like games like Myst where you go into different rooms and you're having to learn about these different rooms, and there are keys within them in order to, in this case, you're trying to figure out everything else. But what if you had a house that was full of rooms that were surrounding enlightenment or stress relief or relaxation, and you had the ability to three-dimensionally go through these things, and each room had its own Hemi-Sync component. And so these are some of the other things that are in the oven that, let's still have a little of the cake mix on it when you put the toothpick into it, but those are those particular things of intention that we look forward to try to take this technology and use different platforms in order to express it. Digitally, our website will continue offering items of value, whether through audio exercises or topical articles and reference. Maybe we'll get to the place where we have live streams for various interests, and then communicate freely about the nature of them in the world of Hemi-Sync. So, in a sort of fluffy mindset, to be able to have a Hemi-Sync radio station, in my parlance of being able to go somewhere and kind of go, gee, I think I'd like to listen to this today. This is what I like listening to at the office. This is what I like listening to at home. And it's something that's delivered over the airwaves, if you will. Hemi-Sync forum, anyone? Social media. It's a brave new world out there where we have connections which is as easy as sitting down in front of a keyboard. And so we certainly want to have an impact on that. We certainly want to make it easier for people to get to, and we certainly want to make it that they are getting something that they value. It's amazing with the world that we have. We obviously have really complicated software that's available to us. We've got huge computers that have terabytes of information that you can stuff into them. This is the kind of world that I think that Bob really would have liked to have grown up in, because the sky's the limit, and Bob would have had a lot of fun with this stuff. All right, so In closing, the other item I would like to talk about, which is a very important one, it needs to be said in this venue, and that is that we would very much like to assist TMI in creating new Hemi-Sync workshops in order to revive and reinvigorate the current lineup. As a metaphor, Gateway, Guidelines, Lifeline, etc., all have had wonderful runs on this esoteric Broadway. But TMI needs to get some new plays in their most important theater, the Nancy Penn Center. It is a sanctuary and a special place and deserves to be filled with wonderment and exploration. And I say that from the bottom of my heart because I've seen so much of it. And we all know what we love about this place. We all know what we can do to nurture this place. And so I'm standing here telling you that in terms of the Hemi-Sync world and the relationship with the Monroe Institute, we would like to do everything that we are able in order to support the endeavors here. It would also be great to revisit some of the older dated material in current workshops and bring them up to speed in the manner that we reviewed this morning. Mr. Holbrook and I have already talked about this, and so I look forward to working with TMI in the future to promote New Life Energy. And so, that'll be another wonderful thing. I know that during the context of this week, within the Board of Advisors meeting as well, talked about wanting to be able to refurbish and re-energize these particular exercises, these particular works. And so we will pursue that, and hopefully you guys will look forward to hearing some really cool stuff as a result of the collaboration. And I must say that Scooter's reintroduction into the Institute is an asset. Yeah. I know what I'm talking about. She is an asset for TMI. Her heart's in the right place. As a Virgo, she's very detail-oriented. And it'll be interesting to see what transpires with everything. So Scoot, rock on with it. Certainly appreciate that. I know you'll be doing a great job with your endeavors, so look forward to that. That's basically all I have. I want to say thank you very much.